All right, lesson 2.3 is going to be on dividing polynomials to begin with, using long division and synthetic division. And then the next lesson, and it's still on this note sheet, but we won't talk about it until the next lesson. We'll talk about the remainder and the factor theorems. So when I teach long division, I always go back to long division when you first learned how to divide, like back in, I don't know, 5th or 6th grade, where we would take a number like 425 and we would divide it by 3. And so if you think about like the first step that you guys did back then, that first step was actually to divide. So you would take 4 and you would divide it by 3. It would be 1 when you do that division. Now, this is going to be a little different because we are going to have polynomials, but still the first step is to divide, but we are dividing the first terms only. Okay, so if I set this one up, what is here, which you're dividing into, is called the dividend. Oh, not dent. And what you're dividing by is called the divisor. So the dividend goes underneath the division box thing. I don't know what that's called, if it even has a name. What you're dividing by is going to go outside. All right, so this first step is to divide, and when we're doing polynomials, it's just the first term divided by the first term. So you can actually like divide it, or you can ask yourself, what do you multiply 2x by to get 6x cubed? Either way, you're going to get 3x squared. Okay, so let's talk about the next step in long division. So your next step is we take that 1 and we multiply it by the 3. So we do 1 times 3, which is 3. Now, when we do that multiplication over here with the polynomial, we need to make sure that we distribute. Okay, so 3x squared times 2x gives you your 6x cubed. 3x squared times negative 1 is going to be minus 3x squared. And it's super important with the polynomials that you line up your like terms. Okay, and then think about the next step on this problem on the left. The next step is to subtract. So we are going to subtract and we get 1. Now we have to be super careful when we subtract here that we subtract both of these, not just the original one. So we have to subtract the 6x cubed, but we also have to subtract the negative 3x squared, so that would change it to positive. So I like to change both signs like you have to. And I usually circle them after I change the sign because otherwise you might forget that you did it or whatever, so I always circle it. All right, so this step, 6x cubed minus 6x cubed is 0. That has to cancel out or you did something wrong. And then 10x squared plus 3x squared is going to, 7x squared plus 3x squared is going to be your 10x squared. All right, so let's go back to our other problem, the elementary school problem. Your next step is to bring down. So you bring down that 2. So in this case, we bring down minus 9x. All right, and then you're going to repeat. All right, so we'll not worry about that elementary school one anymore. So here we're going to either divide 2x into 10x squared, or ask yourself, what do you multiply 2x by to get 10x squared? Either way, that's going to be 5x. Then we're going to distribute that. So 5x times 2x is 10x squared. 5x times negative 1 is minus 10x. All right, and then our subtraction, we need to make sure we change both signs. Oh wait, I did something wrong. I multiplied wrong, sorry. 5x times negative 1 is 5x, or negative 5x. Okay, so we'll go ahead and subtract the 10x squared minus x squared. It cancels out, which it has to. That's going to be negative 4x. And then we bring down. All right, and then you're going to divide. So you ask yourself, would you multiply 2x by to get negative 4x? That's going to be negative 2. All right, and then when we multiply, negative 2 times 2x is negative 4x. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. And then when I subtract, I change both signs. And we end up with a remainder of 0. All right, that's long division, everybody. All right, so let's do it again for another problem. Now, I noticed on this one that there is not an x squared term in my dividend, so I am going to fill in a 0 for it. Now, if you don't, it doesn't make it wrong. It's just going to make it harder for you to line up your like terms, so I just go ahead and always do that. Okay, so let's divide. So we're going to ask ourselves, would you multiply 3x by to get 9x cubed? That's going to be 3x squared, and I would write that above my x squared term. Then I'm going to multiply 3x squared by 3x and get 9x cubed. Multiply 3x squared by 2, and that's going to be 6x squared. All right, for the subtract step, I'm going to change both signs. All right, and then the 9x cubed becomes 0. 0 minus 6 is negative 6. X squared. And then we're going to bring down. And then we're going to repeat. So you ask yourself, would you multiply 3x by to get negative 6x squared? That's going to be negative 2x. Right, and then we'll multiply. And then we'll change both signs so we can subtract. All right, when we subtract, we get minus 12, and then we'll bring down. Okay, one more time. You ask yourself, would you multiply 3x by to get 12x? And that's going to be 4. All right, and then we'll multiply and subtract. Okay, so this time we do get a remainder. And so what you do with the remainder, I've got this all. Sorry, what you do with the remainder is you tack it on to the end of the problem and you put it over the divisor. All right, so all that right there is your answer. That's long division, and it's long, but it always works. So we're also going to talk about synthetic division, which is way shorter. The problem is that it's limited. We can only use it occasionally. So to use synthetic division, the divisor must be something like x plus 3 or x minus 5. So the x must have a coefficient of 1 and an exponent of 1. So that wouldn't work for either one of the ones we just did, because Here x has a coefficient of 3, here x has a coefficient of 2. So I'll never ask you to do long division on a problem you can do synthetic division on. I just won't. All right, so I'm going to just do example 3 with you, and then we'll go back and fill in all this blanks so we don't have to be flipping around. Okay, so when you can do synthetic division on this one because your divisor is x minus 6. So there's the coefficient of 1 for your x and a power of 1 for my x. All right, so on synthetic division, you have this box. And the number that goes in the box is going to be what would make that denominator 0, or it would be the root of that divisor. Most people just think of it as if it's x minus 6, you put positive 6 in the box, so it's the opposite. To the right of the box, you're going to write the coefficients and the constant of the dividend, sorry. But we do have to fill in zeros if anything was skipped. So it goes x to the 4th, x to the 3rd. The next should be x squared. There is no x squared, so we put in 0x squared. All right, the next should be x. There is no x, so we have to put in 0x. Now, on the long division, that isn't necessary. You can still get the right answer without doing that. On synthetic division, you will get the wrong answer. You'll be doing the wrong division problem if you don't fill in those zeros. All right, so to the right of the box, we write all of our coefficients and our constant from our dividend. Okay, then you're going to leave a space so we can write numbers, and then you're going to draw a line. All right, and then we'll bring down the first number after the box, not the number in the box, the number after the box, which is 10. And then from here on, you're going to multiply, and then you're going to add. So we multiply 6 times 10, that's 60. It goes under the next number, and then you're going to add and get 10. And then do that again. 6 times 10 is 60. Write it under the next number. You're going to add and get 60. All right, and then 6 times 60 is 360. And you're going to add and get 360. All right, and then 6 times 360 is getting kind of large numbers. That's okay. And then you're going to add, and you're going to get 1360. All right, and then I'll always put a little marker right there to separate the last number, because that last number is the remainder. And this obviously is not our answer. Our answers have to look like they did on these division problems. They have to look like these answers. So what this is the coefficients and the constant and the remainder of your answer. All right, so, and then the very first exponent is 1 less than the exponent of the dividend. So that was 10x to the 4th. This is going to be, for the answer, 10x to the 3rd. And then you go down by 1, 10x squared, 60x, 360. And then plus you put your remainder over your divisor. Right, that should be the answer. Okay, so let's fill in these blanks. So if you do this without me and that's all a blur to you, we're going to do another example, but that's all a blur to you. Go back and read these steps. It tells you exactly what to do. Okay, so the root, or the 0, of the divisor goes in the box, and normally we just think of it as the opposite. Okay, and then the coefficients and the constant of the dividend go to the right of the box. All right, be sure to fill in a 0 for any term that was skipped. If you don't, like I said, you're doing the wrong problem. All right, you're going to then leave a space for numbers and draw a line. bring down the first number to the right of the box, and then you're going to multiply the number in the box by the number under the line. And then you write it under the next number. All right, then you're going to add and continue to multiply and add until you get to the end of the problem. The numbers you have left, the numbers under the line, are the coefficients, the constant, and the remainder of the answer, or the quotient is another word for the answer. The last number is always the remainder. That's why I put a little bar to separate it. And the degree of the answer, or the quotient, is 1 less than the degree of the dividend. Okay, so let's do one more example. Let's do B. So first check to make sure you can do synthetic division. So if your divisor is x plus 2, you're in good shape because x doesn't have a power other than 1 and it doesn't have a coefficient other than 1. So we'll draw the box. Since our divisor is x plus 2, we put negative 2 in the box. All right, these are out of order, which is kind of annoying. So you would need to put them in the right order, or again, you're doing the wrong problem. So it has to go, powers have to go 3, 2, 1, none. And nothing is skipped. It was just out of order, so we don't have to fill in a 0. Leave a space and draw a line. Bring down the 4. Then you're going to multiply and add, multiply and add, multiply and add. All right, then we're going to go to write our answer. So it's 4x, and then the power on the x is 1 less than the power on the dividend, the degree of the dividend. So that's going to be 2. And then it would be 0x, so we don't need to write. And then minus 9, and then no remainder. So that's it. Okay. So what I want y'all to do for your assignment is page 144, 13, 14, 23, 24, 28, 34, and 38. And if it's a problem, even if the directions say to use long division, if you can do synthetic division, do synthetic division. So if you're dividing by something that was like these divisors where it's just x plus something or x minus something, do synthetic. But do long whenever there is either a power on your x on your divisor or a coefficient.